Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Football Baron podcast. So we're going to be going over some of the match days that occurred in the Premier League, such as Tottenham winning up against Arsenal in a 2-1 victory, beating Arsenal in the North London derby, as well as Leicester in a shocking turnaround defeat alongside Manchester United, who were unfortunate as well as going through some transfer stories and some potential wonder kids to watch. All right, starting off with Wolves versus Everton. Now, if you've been paying attention to any of the matches that's been going on, Wolves versus Everton, just very poor from both sides. I think that what was happening for both teams with both their managers, what they were showing was promising and the expectations were high. But recently, in the past couple of games, they just haven't been really fully up to the effort. They haven't been showing that spark that we've seen in other parts of the season. Everton, when Ancelotti came in and started really changing the team. Wolves with a strong record for challenging European football, which they're still doing. But still, a series of bad games, and Wolves were able to break that streak, but Everton are continuing to hold on that streak. Another game, of course, was Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. Trezeguet for Aston Villa, not really a standout player for Villa, but he stood out in that game and scored 2 goals, the only goals in that match, and overall just great performance from him. And Crystal Palace just continuing just a poor slump of form going on for them, and they will get 0 points from that, and Aston Villa will get some crucial 3 points to continue to be competitive in the relegation battle. Now, the main event, I think, the main game, I would believe would be that North London derby. And my goodness, was it a game. Tottenham versus Arsenal. Absolutely thrilling first half, I have to say. Both teams were just continuously pushing and really challenging. You could really see that derby energy despite the lack of fans in the stadium. And Tottenham win with the first game in their new stadium against Arsenal at home. They won, and it's really strong performance to a degree. I'd say that both teams after the second, at the start of the second half, were really just starting to slow down, and it didn't look like themselves in the first half. Specifically, Arsenal. Well, I've been quite critical of Arsenal's defense, and Mikel Arteta recently has been putting some improvements into that defense. But then again, the defense just disappointed again. Martinez, the Arsenal goalkeeper, who's standing in for Bernd Leno because he's injured, he did quite well. Really, I think he's the second or third best player on that pitch. But what he couldn't do was the defense. Mustafi, David Luiz, Otamendi, not Otamendi, excuse me, Kolasinac, just very poor from both for both 3 center backs, and just the defensive shape and the way they just handled the Tottenham attacks was quite poor, and that ultimately led to the goal later on in for both the Tottenham goals. But still, good for Tottenham in winning a derby, and Arsenal will unfortunately be quite hampered by that defeat, and not much they can do. Now, one key player that I felt that was standing out for that game was Heung. Now, Tottenham have been, let's say, a very poor season for the expectations that people have of the team. And one thing I just want to say is how we set these expectations, and then we highlight players and put too much pressure or too much criticism on them. Now, I think one player is Heung. Now, there's, of course, a lot of people who support him and believe that he's a great player. And there's some people that believe that he's not really a top-class player. But Heung is, I believe, one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. For his skill level specifically, he's one of the most underrated players, especially for Tottenham. Because if you just look at his stats, and there's, of course, little incidents that occur, such as Son with a dispute with Lloris, but just looking at his stats and what he contributes to Tottenham, especially with their key talisman player, Harry Kane, being injured for a good part of the season, and he's only just returned, Look at his stats: 38 appearances in all competitions, 17 goals and 12 assists. But in the Premier League specifically, because we're just focusing on the Premier League, 10 goals and 11 assists. Now, for Tottenham, their biggest problem is lack of scoring goals and lack of just overall chances. And I think that Heung Son is really what's keeping them afloat or on top. I mean, with them having so many injuries and just so many problems, I think that Heung Son has been a fairly consistent factor. And I think that he does deserve praise because I think look at some of the Tottenham players, you just see that they don't really have that drive or commitment as we saw in previous seasons. But I think I see that personally in Heung Son, and I think that his presence at Tottenham is really major. And I do really think that he's deeply underrated in the West specifically. Of course, he's a major craze in the East, specifically in Korea, with many Korean fans just absolutely adoring him. But still, I think that it needs to be highlighted that this man is a great player and absolutely world-class player in my opinion, and that I think he's just severely underrated, specifically for what's going on around Tottenham and what he's been able to produce. 10 goals and 11 assists in the Premier League, that's absolutely incredible. So especially with him being sidelined for a major injury, but he comes back and he's still putting in a solid performance. I think that's quite impressive. Yeah. Now, there was some three crucial games, of course: Bournemouth and versus Leicester City and Manchester United versus Southampton. Prior to those games, we saw Chelsea dropping points against Sheffield, and it's really truly a battle for top four in that Champions League spot. Now that Manchester City have been their ban has been lifted against all UEFA competitions such as the Champions League, that means that the fifth place spot will no longer be a Champions League spot. And I think that it's important for these three teams to focus, with the last couple of games. But Bournemouth just shocked Leicester City after Soyuncu was trying to stop the ball from going in, but it was a goal, and then he lashed out on a Bournemouth player, and he got sent off, and then the Leicester City just tumbled down into a 4-1 loss, and overall just shocking from that. But Manchester United, they also got shocked, 2-1 ahead, and then in the last couple of minutes, just the last minute, they get scored on and it gets drawn. Both teams not getting those points, except Manchester United, who got a point, but still they're at fifth place. And I think it's really crucial that these teams start really just focusing, and I think that whichever two teams get ahead will really show, hopefully, their mentality and what they can do next season. But Leicester, not looking very good. I think it's very, very disappointing what they've done. Leicester City as a whole, what the club has done in the beginning of the season, just absolutely impeccable football, absolutely strong form, just blazing hot. Jamie Vardy leading, and then they just slipped. They absolutely slipped that lead. And I really did believe earlier in the season that Leicester City would have a guaranteed Champions League spot. And now they're contesting for it. They're fourth place, tied with Manchester United, I believe. And not looking very good. But speaking of Manchester United, of course they got a draw in that Southampton game. But now thinking to next season. Now ignoring what football they have, Champions League football and all of that sorts. But I do believe that if Manchester United, I believe that their squad should have contested top four earlier in the season, and now they're slowly getting to that. But next season, they should be title contenders. With these rumors and what's going on with some of the players that they're looking to bring in, and if even a couple is true, they need to be title contenders next season. Absolutely, all the top clubs have been slipping up, and Liverpool has just dominated them all. And Manchester City hasn't done that well either. But they're still looking strong enough to challenge Liverpool. But I believe that teams like Manchester United and Chelsea and all that sort, they need to be title contenders next season. They need to show some effort. They need to show that commitment. Because what Manchester United did in the mid-season, they really slipped up. And they're slowly coming back right now in this season, but with the quality of the squad, with the quality of the players in their squad, they have no excuse for not being title contenders. They have some top-class players. Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, who is in absolute hot form. Alexander Wan-Bissaka, he's absolutely incredible defender, right back. And then we have just other players such as Rashford. Greenwood is just a new hot prospect, just absolutely incredible. I don't see what more excuses they can have. If they bring in players from the transfer window, specifically for their back line and just overall more attacking depth, then I don't see the excuse for why they can't be title contenders. Because Manchester United, the club as a whole, has a history of winning. And if they aren't just even contesting the title, then I think it's very, very disappointing, and definitely some major question needs to be asked. Now, speaking about these top European clubs, specifically in the Premier League, Manchester United, Chelsea. Now, Chelsea, they have Tammy Abraham, who's been absolutely incredible. Don't get me wrong, for the early half of the season and mid-season as well. 16 goals in all competitions. Absolutely great for Chelsea. And I think that he's a good striker. But now looking at it from new signings being brought in, such as Timo Werner and Hakim Ziyech, I don't see him as a player that Chelsea can use in the future. I really don't think he's Chelsea's future. Just looking at just what his form has slumped. Now, I'm not saying that just because his form has slumped that he's just a terrible player and he shouldn't be used. But then there's also just the players that they're bringing in. They're just by far better quality as of a player compared to Tammy Abraham. He's 22 years old. I think that he's slowly beginning to reach his potential, and I think that just looking at how he plays and just what he's been doing now, and with Chelsea trying to renegotiate a contract potentially, and with him asking for more pay, I think that I don't think he's the future. I think that Timo Werner will be he is a better player than Abraham, and I think that Tammy Abraham, just what he's been showing after the restart, has been quite poor. I think a 33-year-old Olivier Giroud is doing far better in terms of form, and I think that Giroud, who is staying for another season, I believe, is just another striker that they can rely on. And I don't think that unless Werner gets injured or just has very poor play, I don't think that Werner will be sidelined for Abraham. And maybe a tactical change could be the Tammy Abraham and Timo Werner, two up front. But I don't believe, looking at the current tactical formation for Chelsea, I don't think that's a potential option. But overall, what he's been showing in the latter half of the season just has been quite poor, and I don't think that he's Chelsea's future. Just overall, the players that they're bringing in, high money signings, high quality players who are pretty much proven. I'd say Timo Werner is a proven player. Hakim Ziyech is a pretty proven player as well for what he's been doing at his club, Ajax. I think that what we're seeing is, in my opinion, just Tammy Abraham not being up to the quality of a squad that Chelsea is producing. And I think that Chelsea are trying to produce a squad that can be top level, that can challenge the title. And I don't think Tammy Abraham can produce that. Of course, I can be proven wrong, but just looking at what he's been doing and just looking more at his overall play, I don't really have a lot of confidence in him being a top-level player for Chelsea. Also, some transfer news. Of course, Felipe Coutinho of Barcelona, formerly of Liverpool. Now, Barcelona are in financial problems at the current moment, and they're trying to offload some players. We saw, the reports of Rakitic, they're trying to offload him away. And, of course, Arthur and for Pjanic from Juventus to Barcelona. And, of course, they're trying to get more financial freedom in terms of just getting more money to bring in players such as Martinez from Inter. Now, looking at Felipe Coutinho, he is, of course, a major player back then and hasn't been really producing the same results he did in Liverpool. And he's a major player who was on a big wage bill. And Barcelona are trying to get him off. I mean, we saw that in Bayern with him, Coutinho being loaned to Bayern and playing in the Bundesliga. Now, Coutinho he didn't really play that well, if I'm going to be honest. 8 goals and 6 assists in 23 appearances. For his level of player, and in the Bundesliga, when you're playing with one of the most dominant teams in the league, the most dominant, not one of the most, the dominant team in the league, you should expect it. Bayern overall, let's be honest, were not really looking strong earlier in the season. But he should be the quality of player he is. He should be one of the top players and be producing a bunch of goals and just been assisting a lot. But we didn't really see that. 8 goals and 6 assists in 23 appearances, and you even see that in the latter half of the season where Hansi Flick just didn't really use him anymore because he's not the player that they're going to be looking forward. And Bayern turned down the option to purchase him. And I think that Barcelona, they're looking to loan him to do a loan move or a transfer to Newcastle or Arsenal. But I think his future is really bleak. I think that what he did at Liverpool, I don't think he was able to translate it, of course. And I don't think he's not good enough for a player of what he showed. He's just not good enough. And I think that it could be an amazing comeback story if he does a loan move to Arsenal or Newcastle or whatever and really shows that performance. I think that'd be an amazing comeback story. But I think that if he does that, I think it really would be a great redemption story. But overall, Barcelona just trying to move on from him. They really don't. It really wasn't a return on the investment, and just very poor in the Bundesliga and La Liga for what he has done after moving away from Liverpool. Wonderkid to watch, a segment we do every podcast where we go over a young player who has a lot of potential and a player to watch, a Wonderkid to watch. And this segment, this podcast, we're going to be talking about Eric Garcia, 19-year-old Spanish defender from the Barcelona Academy, La Masia, who was taken from that academy to Man City. Now, he's slowly been rising up, and ever since the restart, we've seen Man City starting Eric Garcia. He's only 19 years old, just keep that in mind. And I think that, I really do think that he can be a top-class player. I say that for all the Wonder Kids to watch because they can be. All of them can be top-class players. But Eric Garcia, not something we see more often. He's 5'11" defender. And he's absolutely incredible for Pep Guardiola's style of play. Pep Guardiola wants the central defenders or defenders overall who can pass quite well and play from the back, and overall with Pep Guardiola's team focusing on the defenders who can pass the ball and make intelligent moves. And Garcia definitely has that. Some key attributes, just passing ability as a defender, and he's also cool and calm. We've seen players such as John Stones and Otamendi just not really getting that much playing time ever since the restart, and they're being replaced with Eric Garcia, alongside Eric Garcia being put alongside Laporte, and overall just very intelligent and clever play. And I think that is what Manchester City needs in terms of just the overall defense problems that they've been having. Specifically, we saw earlier in the season when Laporte was off, you could see that lack of depth. They had to put Fernandinho in the back line for Man City. And I think that Eric Garcia, if he develops into what he's capable of, can be a great future defender for Man City. And they're looking to do that. But of course, there's also interest from Barcelona to bring him back to Barcelona, and of course, he could take that option. But overall, I think he is an interesting player for the new type of football we're seeing. I think he's not really a physical threat, if I'm to be honest. 5'11", lacks physical qualities. He just has very clever, strong passing, intelligent play that we're seeing in new football with the arrival of Pep Guardiola, and he's changing the way teams play, specifically how center backs play, how they're being more part of the attacking threat. And we can see that with players like Eric Garcia being brought up that way, focusing more on their passing ability and how they can build up and attack. And I think that Eric Garcia, to be honest, Pep Guardiola was even talking about his lack of physical qualities, because I think it is a key thing to highlight as a major weakness for him, is that he's 5'11", and the Premier League has some very physical teams whose strikers will dominate him potentially. And even though Eric Garcia is claimed to not make that many mistakes, he will have some difficulties to face with that. And Pep Guardiola even admitted that he might not play Eric Garcia against teams which are going to be more physically dominant and plays center backs who can more handle that. And I think Eric Garcia I think he's going to be a unique type of defender. I think he has the potential, but I'm a little skeptical if I'm going to be honest. I think that if he can adapt with the lack of physical qualities that he has as a defender and use what he has available to him, the passing ability and just overall his intelligent play and how he's cool and calm, I think it will be interesting as a defender as we see these new defenders show, and just overall a strong potential future. And one of the few wonder kids that we see who are defenders, and we usually see that love of going towards attackers, attack-minded players such as strikers and attacking midfielders. But we're seeing, of course, a wonder kid who is a defender to watch. That will be the last segment of this podcast. I just want to thank you all for watching and listening. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you aren't on YouTube or on any podcast platform, just follow us and subscribe to us on that podcast platform and rate us. It really is appreciated. If you want to see us on YouTube, the channel, of course, is called Football Baron. You can check out the podcast on a YouTube platform. Anyways, I want to thank you again for all listening and watching this episode of the podcast. Hope you all enjoyed. And if you would like to leave a comment in the YouTube comments, we'd appreciate it. And again, have a great day, everyone. And I hope to see you guys soon in the next episode.